people don't understand what high cholesterol is and whether it's something to do with whether they're fat or slim. Anybody could have high cholesterol.
A great deal of the cholesterol that one finds in the circulation in an adult human is probably completely unnecessary and indeed is probably harmful.
The understanding of cholesterol as a potential cause of heart disease, I think, is gradually improving, but I think there's a long way to go.
Cholesterol levels in Britain are among the highest in the world. And death rates from coronary heart disease are amongst the highest too. The link between the two is now undisputed. It's clear that the incidence of coronary heart disease in Britain could be dramatically reduced if we play an active and positive role in reducing high cholesterol levels in the bloodstream. And it doesn't mean we have to stop having fun. To reduce our cholesterol levels, we need to enrich our lives with a wider range of foods, take more regular physical exercise, and a more positive, more optimistic approach to how we view our future and the future of our children.
Cholesterol is a lipid, which means it's a fatty substance. It's essential for life.
It's part of the membranes that surround cells. It's also used for making certain types of hormones and vitamins like vitamin D.
The cholesterol, which is an essential constituent of our cells, is partly derived from the diet and partly synthesized in the body, particularly in the liver.
Cholesterol is transported through the bloodstream, both to and from the liver, on vehicles known as proteins. In combination with cholesterol, these proteins are known as lipoproteins. The two most important types of lipoproteins are low-density and high-density lipoproteins. Low-density lipoproteins, or LDL cholesterol, is transported from our liver to all the cells of our body, where it's used as an essential component of the cell walls of our tissues. High-density lipoproteins, or HDL cholesterol, actually removes excess LDL from the bloodstream by transporting it back to the liver. When there's too much LDL cholesterol and not enough HDL cholesterol in the bloodstream, excess LDL is eventually deposited within the walls of the arteries. These deposits, called plaques, transform into fatty tissue that narrows the arteries and restricts the flow of blood to our organs. This fatty tissue is known as atheroma. If, due to atheroma, an artery narrows, then supply of blood and oxygen to the organs is reduced. The condition is known as atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis in the coronary arteries can be fatal, because if blood and oxygen can't reach the heart can't function.
If you want to avoid getting heart disease, the ideal is to have as low an LDL as possible and as high an HDL as possible.
Cholesterol is only one of several risk factors for coronary heart disease, but some people can least afford high blood cholesterol levels because their risk of coronary heart disease is so high. People who've already had coronary heart disease, people who have a history of heart disease in the family, people with diabetes mellitus, people with high blood pressure, smokers, and South Asians living in Britain. Measuring the amount of cholesterol in our blood can tell us if we're at risk of coronary heart disease.
If you're concerned about your cholesterol level, then the best person to measure the cholesterol for you is your general practitioner or his or her surgery nurse.
The first time it's done, the total cholesterol is measured. And if that comes back as normal, then probably that's the end of it. If it comes back as raised, which is very often the case, then one needs to have a second test, firstly to confirm the result of the first, but also to measure how much of the cholesterol is present in LDL and how much in HDL.
Having your blood tests taken doesn't hurt at all. I mean, a little scratch, yeah, but other than that, it doesn't hurt, and it's not something to be scared about, really.
How often the cholesterol level needs to be measured is really determined by the patient's coronary risk, so that if on the first occasion that you have your cholesterol measured, the other risk factors that are taken into account in the calculation reveal that your coronary risk is relatively low, then you probably won't need to have it done for another 5 years or possibly even more. If on the other hand, for example, you were borderline through receiving drug treatment then it might need to be done again quite soon, perhaps 6 months or a year.
People who have a high cholesterol and either don't know it or ignore it, they run a risk of developing premature atherosclerosis, in particular of the coronary arteries. In some instances, the very first sign of somebody having had a high cholesterol is sudden death.
Cholesterol is measured in millimoles per litre. A full cholesterol profile measures a number of different components in the blood, but for each one, there is a safe limit which we should all aspire to stay within. LDL cholesterol should be below 3 millimoles per litre. HDL levels should be above 1 millimole per litre, and triglyceride levels should be below 2.3 millimoles per litre. The recommended safe total cholesterol level in the blood should be below 5 millimoles per litre. However, there's no single level which could be regarded as safe. It's based on the individual and other risk factors.
If the patient's risk of coronary heart disease is high, then even quite a low level of LDL cholesterol may demand treatment. So, for example, if somebody's already had a heart attack, even if their cholesterol level is 5 millimoles per litre, it still requires treatment.
Cholesterol levels within the general population of Britain are very high. The incidence of coronary heart disease is also very high. This map showing distribution of heart disease throughout Europe shows Britain clearly in the danger zone. We need to take more seriously the danger that high cholesterol levels pose and do as much as we can to reduce them. If you eat a diet rich in saturated fats, it's likely your total cholesterol levels will be high. Try to grill food instead of frying. Grilled food tastes just as good, if not better, than fried food, but with much less fat. If you're at risk of coronary heart disease, saturated fat intake should be kept to an absolute minimum. If you smoke, you should stop. Alcohol intake should be moderated. If you have high blood pressure or don't take enough physical exercise or you're overweight, you could be seriously at risk of developing heart disease. Together with high cholesterol levels, these risk factors spell danger.
As far as reducing cholesterol levels where they're found to be high is concerned, I think the first step always is diet.
Animal fats are the major source of saturated fats in our diets. Too much saturated fat from meat, cream, butter, and other foods that are made from these products, like pies, sausages, and cream cakes, all add to high LDL cholesterol levels in our bloodstream. Fast foods like chips and beef burgers are usually cooked in oils that are predominantly composed of saturated fats. These foods should be eaten sparingly.
We tend to have a view that we have a traditional diet in Britain which is high in saturated fat, and this somehow is associated with being great as a nation in the past, and it's sort of somewhat wishy-washy and a bit European to start to eat healthily.
Before the war, we ate a lot less fat and engaged in much more physical exercise. After the war, work became more mechanised, and so did farming. The country as a whole became more affluent, more office jobs were created. We walked less and began watching more television. With vacuum cleaners and washing machines and other domestic appliances, another outlet for energy was eroded. We no longer rely on our body fat to keep us warm. We have central heating, gas fires, and electricity. We don't need high levels of animal fat in our diet anymore.
If we could reduce the amount of saturated fat which the nation consumes, and if we could perhaps reverse the tendency towards ever-increasing obesity in the population, I think that would be very helpful.
Fatty foods contain three types of fat: polyunsaturated, monounsaturated, and saturated fats. Saturated fats are generally hard at room temperature and are found in butter, hard cheese, lard, dripping, coconut oil, and palm oil. The white fat found on meat is a rich source of saturated fat. Saturated fat in our diet increases LDL cholesterol levels and so can add to our risk of coronary heart disease. Polyunsaturated fats are found in corn flour oil, sunflower oil, soy oil, and fish oil. They're also used in some margarines and spreads. Polyunsaturated fats can help lower LDL cholesterol, but they also lower HDL cholesterol. Polyunsaturated fats in the diets are less harmful than saturated fats. There's also a group of polyunsaturated fats called omega-3 fats. Omega-3 fats are found in fish oil and oily fish, such as herring, kippers, mackerel, pilchards, sardines, salmon, fresh tuna, trout and anchovies. Omega-3 fats can help prevent blood clotting and help reduce certain types of lipids that add to our risk of coronary heart disease. We should eat oily fish 2 or 3 times per week as part of a healthy, balanced diet. Monounsaturated fats are found in olive oil, walnut oil, rapeseed oil and avocado. Some margarines and spreads are made from them too. Monounsaturated fats can help lower LDL levels and do not lower the HDL level. These types of fats are one of the best type of fats to use in our diet.
There's a tendency for people to feel perhaps that a healthy diet is in some way a boring diet, but again, nothing could be further from the truth.
There's a definite habit within the UK population to go in and buy the same things every week. So you can almost do your shopping with your eyes closed because you know exactly where you're going and you know what you're going to get. Take a really good look around and see what other products there are. Now, sometimes when you pick up things, the label can be quite intimidating. But if you really have a look at it and see what it's saying about fat and about salt content and what type of fat it contains, you can make a much better choice. Being on a diet that's good for your heart doesn't necessarily mean eating lettuce and bran flakes. It's all about making small changes that you're comfortable with, that you don't notice. There are so many different products you can try. You can try the cholesterol-lowering spreads, or you can try different oils, or you can try different recipes with oily fish like tuna or mackerel or herring or trout. I think if people set themselves achievable goals and make small changes one step at a time, they can make significant changes to their diet that will ultimately lower their risk from coronary heart disease.
If our cholesterol levels are high, we can benefit a lot from eating more of the fruit and veg we like and less saturated fat. The foods at the bottom of the triangle we can eat as much as we like. Pasta, bread, potatoes, rice, it's far better to eat these foods for energy rather than fats because they burn up more easily and contain more nutrients than fats. It's very important to eat a balanced diet, but it's also important to engage in regular exercise. For most people, at least half an hour of brisk walking, or perhaps some swimming or cycling, at least 5 days a week should be sufficient. If it's some time since you've exercised, it's best to start slowly and build up to optimum levels accordingly. People already diagnosed with heart disease should consult their doctor prior to embarking on any vigorous exercise plan.
Exercise does, if you take enough of it, it does the right sort of things to one's lipoproteins. It tends to lower the level of LDL and it tends to raise the level of HDL. But in addition to that, it improves one's cardiovascular fitness.
Exercise is very important with this problem. I try and always have a walk at lunchtime for about 20 minutes to half an hour and always have a walk in the evening, maybe for half to 3/4 of an hour. But my walking is dictated by my dog, and I do use that as a very good discipline.
Encouraging people to take up jogging and activities like that may have some short-term advantages, but I suspect that it will be better if people adopted a lifestyle in which they actually learn to like walking a lot more.
In other words, in general terms, try to become fitter. And I think there are very few of us who couldn't become fitter than we are at present.
Those who are most at risk of developing coronary heart disease should know how high their cholesterol levels are. Some people may have a high total cholesterol level but may not be at risk of coronary heart disease because they don't have to consider other factors such as smoking, obesity, physical inactivity, a family history of coronary heart disease, high blood pressure, or diabetes. Any combination of these risk factors plus a high total cholesterol level indicates significant risk of coronary heart disease. However, an apparently normal cholesterol level doesn't mean you're not at risk. Another factor that determines whether we have high cholesterol levels is what kind of environment and background we come from. Our family, our genes, even our ethnic origin and culture can play a part in determining how much at risk we are.
Just because one leads a sensible life and eats prudently and doesn't smoke, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily protected against heart disease, even though these are very sensible things. There are some people who are genetically predisposed to run a high cholesterol.
I discovered I had high cholesterol levels when I was about 12 years old, but my parents discovered it a lot earlier. My family suffered from it. My auntie's just recently found out she's got high cholesterol. Apparently I was running around and my auntie had discovered a little lump on my ankle and had said that, I think this is a high cholesterol lump, you should get it checked out by one of the doctors.
Familial hypercholesterolemia is an inherited condition which affects about 1 in 500 people in Britain. It's what we call a dominant inherited condition, so if you're going to get it, one or other of your parents would have had it. And the condition is caused by a defect in the rate at which cholesterol is removed from the circulation. The gene which actually controls that is the one which is affected in individuals who have it. It's the commonest inherited condition in Britain that can prove lethal.
Of course, for some of us, the risk of heart disease is already too high, and it's at this point we may need medicine.
With people who actually have heart disease, then diet alone is not sufficient, because one needs to get not just a 20% reduction in LDL, but something like a 35 to 40% reduction. And there you need to use drug treatment.
The statin drugs are a group of drugs which lower cholesterol. They lower the harmful cholesterol, the LDL cholesterol. They do this by interfering with the manufacture of cholesterol in the liver, which then encourages more of the harmful LDL to be removed from the circulation.
They're very easy to take, they're remarkably safe, they're remarkably effective. They've absolutely revolutionized the prevention of coronary heart disease during the past 5 to 10 years.
The advice that your doctors give you is terribly important that you do follow it, because they are experts in this field and they do know what they're talking about. And if they tell you to do something, then my recommendation is that you follow it through and be very positive about it.
The advice I would give somebody who has high cholesterol is to watch their diet, eat less saturated fat, do plenty of exercise, and just basically look after themselves.
I think coronary disease has a lot to do with cigarette smoking, sedentary lifestyle, and the wrong type of diet. And I don't think that correcting those things makes life dull. In fact, I think it makes it downside more interesting.
For a healthy life, balance and moderation are essential.